Good morning. Everyone's connecting now. Welcome to Legal Chat.
Good morning.
We're just waiting until 4 minutes after 10:30 to let everyone in.
And while you're waiting, feel free to write where you're viewing from in the chat.
Let's see here.
Oh, good morning. Good morning from Seattle. Awesome.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining.
Hi, Tori.
Nice. Good morning, Emma. St. John, New Brunswick. Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
And if you can tell us too where you're at in your stage of your legal journey. Are you a high school student, college student? We'd love to know.
Hi, Ria. Toronto. I'm seeing some familiar names from our past legal chat, so it's great to see you guys again.
Yes. Good morning, Payal. So we have first year college students and college students. Ria is in high school.
Hi, Farah. From China, amazing.
Good evening from China. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Tiana. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Third year of university, getting ready to write the LSAT. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good range of people on their legal journeys here. Hi, Romina. And Vanessa, good morning. Watching from Virginia. Oh, we have Teresa from Lebanon.
Yes, welcome.
Amazing.
We're so impressed with all of you for, being early with your legal journey and researching and participating and trying to get information.
Oh, hi, JR. Congrats on just taking the LSAT. Hello, Tree at TikTok. Woo! Bringing you here.
And feel free to turn on your cameras. We'd love to see your faces and get to know you.
Yes, that is great.
Hi, Binit.
We'll wait a couple minutes to get going, or what do you think?
Yeah, hold on. Let's see, we're still admitting. We'll start officially at 10:34. We have 36 participants so far. There's actually 209 people who signed up. So we'll be waiting just 2 more minutes. Hi, Lisa, Emma, Romina, JR, and Torian. Let's see. Right here. And as you know, this is also being recorded, everything, so that you can re-watch it if you need to. 1 more minute and we'll start.
All right. Rena.
Kennedy, sophomore in college. You're taking the LSAT next fall. All right.
Nice. Exciting.
All right. Let's see. I'm still admitting a lot of people here. We can start at 10:34.
Oh, you're still letting a lot of people in?
Yeah.
It's not like an automatic thing, huh? You have to let everyone in individually?
Yeah, or admit all.
Oh, okay.
So, but I anticipate admitting people as we already start. So it's 10:34, everyone. We're going to start. Welcome to Legal Chat, where we'll be talking about law school admissions and application. As you know, I'm Catherine Lizardo, and my beautiful partner, Tally Goody, will introduce our guest speakers.
So welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar names and faces. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Tally Goody, and I have the honor of introducing our two guests from the University of San Diego School of Law. I have Mr. Mike Chavez, the Associate Director of Admissions, and Dean Garcia, the Dean of Admissions from USD. So we are so happy to have you both here. Thank you so much. And I think we can get started now.
Yeah, and actually, before we get started, we wanted to remind everyone to please hold off with your questions until the end of presentation to make sure that we go over everything first, and then we'll answer all of your questions today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for inviting us. You know, it's a pleasure to be here on a set. Well, it's raining, if you believe it, in San Diego, so not the typical day. It's great to be connecting with all of you, to be sharing our knowledge about the law school admissions process and help you not only identify, understand what it takes to gain admission to law school and be competitive for admission to law school, but also how to thrive in law school. Right there's a synergy there, and so what you're showing us in the application process is your readiness for law school, and I will touch upon those topics more in depthly as I walk us through this small PowerPoint I put together. The majority of our time, we're splitting the time, so half the time will be for this PowerPoint presentation, the other half are just to answer your questions, and so we hope you engage. We hope that that you're curious and that we can be useful on your journey. As mentioned, Dean Garcia from USD School of Law is also on the line. There may be some questions that I have him answer because of his particular insights that I know he will contribute. So you may see us kind of just tag team back and forth on some of your inquiries. So with that said, let me share my screen and I will we'll jump into this presentation. If Tally or Catherine, if you can give me the capacity to share my screen as a co-host.
Okay. Let me go ahead and hold on. If you can just go ahead and let them know about, hold on. Okay, there you go. Go ahead. Do you have the capacity to share now?
I do. Thank you very much. All right, can all of you see that PowerPoint screen? Presume that's a yes. Fantastic. All right, the nuts and bolts of the application process, right? We're just going to jump into it. So, what are all the different components of an application, mandatory and optional? Well, there's the mandatory ones I've identified with asterisks, right? Those are the ones that every law school will expect a law student to supply. The optional, it depends on the institution. So you want to pay close attention based on the school you're applying to, like what are they asking you for? And here we have, of course, every law school will have their law school specific applications. They will have, for the most of us, we have very similar format of what we're asking you, but then there may be some nuances when it comes to the character and fitness questions, maybe depending on the state you're applying, where the law school resides, they may have some variances in the way they phrase their character and fitness questions. Those are questions that are addressing any issues they may have, if someone has to report to us academic related issues, maybe the academic disqualified or put on probation, or maybe even criminal related, right? Felonies, misdemeanors. That's the character and fitness aspect of an application. So schools differ because their state's jurisdictions and their bars may have, specific requirements that they require disclosure. So, but for the most part, we ask the same stuff. We want to know your name. We want to know where you're from, where you live, where, your job history, or what your institutions that you attended are. And so this is our chance to ask those questions of you. We also have then is your personal statement, which law schools may be law school specific. So law schools can be very particular in what they're asking for in your personal statement. They may have a question prompt which says, please tell us about a particular situation where you've overcome adversity, right? Or they may say, just tell us about yourself and why you feel that you are a strong candidate for law school. So very open-ended. It runs the spectrum. And so you need to pay very close attention to what are they asking of you and address the prompt. You don't get creative. This isn't a creative writing assignment. It's just a chance for us to learn more about you. So that's another mandatory element of an application. A valid LSAT score, right? So, or GRE. About 76 schools are now accepting GRE scores. That's the count that I pulled early this week. But the majority still, or they all still accept the LSAT. So the law school admissions test. So it's a standardized test. It is testing your critical thinking, logical reasoning, and reading comprehension skills. There's also a writing component, writing sample associated with the LSAT. Currently, because we are in a pandemic environment, the LSAC, the Law School Admission Council, they are administering the LSAT virtually. So that's the LSAT Flex. And they have opened up the number or expanded the number of testing dates because they can provide the exam and proctor the exam virtually. So you see many more LSAT Flex dates now than you have in the past because of this expanded, this improvement in technology. So the LSAT score, the mandatory aspect of the application, or some schools accept the GRE. The Credential Assembly Service, CAS report. So when someone takes an LSAT score, right, it's being reported somewhere. It shows up in the CAS report. When someone submits their transcripts from the undergraduate institution they attended, they send those to LSAC. So the Law School Admission Council, they administer the LSAT score, they aggregate your transcripts, they include it in the CAS report, and they report to us your cumulative GPA. They show us a breakdown of the grades that you earned throughout your term at the undergraduate level or even community college, if those courses were related to your degree. It may also show grad schools that you attended. And I actually have a sample CAS report that I will share with you so we can all see here in this PowerPoint exactly what I'm talking about, which is very useful to kind of wrap your mind around what we're seeing in this report. International students. So we have a lot of international guests with us today. So thank you for connecting the different time zones that you're located in. For international students, your transcripts will be sent to LSAC for evaluation. And schools may accept different forms of transcript evaluation, but LSAC has a specific service of authentication and evaluation for the foreign institution you attended. Not foreign for you, foreign for us, right, in the United States. So they have experts who can review your transcripts, equate it to a US 4.0 GPA scale, right? So, they can't give a number specifically, like this is the GPA you have, but they will give us a grade range, like, oh, this student was a B+ student, this student was an A+ student, or A- student, or C+ student, based on the grades that they see, because they're familiar with how your country grades their grading format and their academic at those academic institutions across the world. So we receive that equivalency report, and it's part of then our assessment. Like I can't read in Mandarin, so I don't know what all the different transcripts look like, right, when they're coming from China, but the LSAC will give me this report and say, oh, they earned a B+ equivalent in their coursework as a computer science major. So that's what that evaluation service looks like for those international students. Letters of recommendation. So letters of recommendation are optional, right? That's why it doesn't have the asterisk here. So not every school may require a letter of recommendation. They may say, give us 3, or some schools may say, we just require 1, right? As a comparison, just as for a reference point, USD, for us, letters of recommendation are optional. We allow students to submit up to 2. Whenever somebody says that something's optional, it's highly recommended, right? You're trying to put your best foot forward. You're trying to communicate as much information about yourself to us as you can. And I think that, it's in your benefit if you are able to supply a letter of recommendation from either an academic source or professional source from individuals who speak to your work product and your abilities and your skills and your strengths, right? So even though it's optional, some schools may have them as a requirement. You should strive to produce a quality letter of recommendation. You can only help your application, right? Resumes, again, generally they're optional, but some schools may make them mandatory. So at USD, they're optional, but if someone, you want to show your work history, you want to show how you've been spending your time both inside and outside the classroom, that's the benefit of a resume. And it should be an academic resume in nature. I always recommend the students seek out assistance from their either career services office or maybe alumni office. They have services to help students put together academic resumes, right? Because they want to see you go on and pursue your dreams. And so they will, they have dedicated professionals that say, you You're looking for a job, let's help you put together a professional resume. You're looking to apply to grad school, these are the things you should be thinking about when you're to include in a resume. So, and they're free, right? They're from your, we're a school that you attended. So it's a resource there for you to take advantage of. And I highly recommend you seeking out what that department may look like at your school. Maybe it's the writing center or something like that. But make those inquiries, because it's nice having a framework, someplace to start from, and having, as opposed to, putting a resume together and realizing halfway through, like, oh, wait a minute, this is not what I should be, it should look completely different. So, and again, I know for the questions that are coming in, we'll have plenty of time after this session to answer a lot of your questions live. Addenda. So what is addenda? Those are additional documents that you may supply to an institution, to a law school, to communicate, information you think is relevant to your candidacy for admission, right? Some law schools may say, please give us an optional essay, right? So some schools may say, you can provide a diversity statement, LSAT addendum, GPA addendum. These are additional explanations where you communicate to us, this, my LSAT score is not a reflection of my abilities. Let me tell you why. My GPA is not a reflection of like who I am as a student. Let me tell you why. Throughout someone's career at the undergraduate level, a lot of things can happen, right? And we understand that life, sometimes gets in the way of us being the best student we can be. And we may see that there are difficulties in the transcript, right, through the CAS report. But without an explanation, we don't know, does it mean that the student is just simply doesn't have a strong foundation academically to do well, or was there something else going on? So I think some students refrain from supplying an addendum because they think it's an excuse, right? And they don't want the law school to think they're making up excuses. Well, it's an excuse if you don't really clarify how the situation impacted you, and then pivot towards areas of your life where you have demonstrated success, where you have demonstrated achievement, right? So if you're saying, you know what, my undergraduate grades are reflective of my abilities, then I want to see, then what is, right? And when you call my attention to that and you point it out, then I understand that you understand where you have been able to illustrate in your life the skills necessary to do well, either in an academic or professional environment, right? And so similar with the LSAT, you're not just a number, you're not just an LSAT score, you're more complex than that. But we need you to unfold that for us and explain why there are challenges on the LSAT and where in your life you have, you have illustrated or demonstrated the skills that the LSAT maybe is trying to measure, right? So that's what an addendum looks like. Shouldn't be more than a page. If you're, it should just a brief explanation. But law schools may either tell you, here, upload your addendum at this, during this part of the application, or they just say you can upload any additional documents that you feel is relevant to your candidacy, and then you on your own know through an event like this, like, oh, these are documents, or these are statements that I can include. And then I mentioned very briefly optional essays. They may require, law schools may be seeking additional writing samples, right? Aside from the LSAT writing sample, question prompt, to gauge your writing skills. And so they may give you additional essays to answer. So, and on to the next page. Your objective of each element of the application process, right? What are you trying to accomplish, in your application as a whole? This is a holistic review process. We examine everything to determine your ability to thrive and your readiness for law school. So number one, you demonstrate your academic professional readiness for law school. Number two, make clear the experiences and motivations behind your pursuit of a legal education. We want to know why you come, to this moment. And then convey who you are as a person and your ability to contribute to the school's learning environment, campus, and of course the legal profession, right? So I think that we want to know exactly who is the person that will show up on our campus and be engaged, be involved, contribute to what, our student culture, and how, what their aspirations are, and hopefully where that will take them as a student and also as a legal professional. All right. So I mentioned the CAS report, right? So I'm sure many of you have probably never seen a CAS report, but this is what we received, this fictitious set of numbers related to someone's, file. But this is what we're seeing, we are receiving from LSAC. You pay for a CAS report to send to each institution you're applying to. You send your transcripts, right? International student, you're sending your transcripts for evaluation, right? You're sending, for US educated students, or, students in Canada, for example, you're sending your transcript in for inclusion. We see your GPA trend. We see how you started your undergraduate career. We see how you finished your undergraduate career. We see if it, the GPA rose, GPA went down, there are inconsistencies. That's what this information is down here. And there's a lot going on, right? So, I don't want to, I could spend literally an hour just talking about the CAS report. So I don't want to do that because you're looking at a lot of different numbers. But let me just give you a very quick breakdown. We see the institutions you attended, which institution you received your degree from, right? This report happens to be fall 2020, so when it was generated. We see the age, we see ethnicity, we see your degree or major. Sometimes if there's multiple majors, right, you see, BA in electrical engineering and BA in political science, whatnot, if there's two. We see academic honors, right, that may be listed. And this is being pulled from your transcripts, right? That's how it's now, it's just being packaged in a way that's easy for us to work through from the admissions side. We also see if you attended any other prior law schools. Sometimes someone attended a prior law school and maybe they're now, they left that school and they're applying to a new law school. So we see that not only undergraduate, but also master's programs or PhD programs. All of those universities will show up in the institutions attended. GPA distribution and LSAT percentage. So where for students who maybe who attended your institution, where did they fall for their LSAT scores, right? So 10% of all the students who attended the University of Alaska Anchorage were at the 95 percentile and up, right? For I think from like mid 1991 for this report to December 2019, right? So it's a date range where they're saying 10% of all the students who took the exam, the LSAT exam, who attended the University of Anchorage, were at the 95th percentile and up, right? So this distribution is useful because we're looking at, okay, what is your LSAT score, right? And how does it compare to your classmates? Similar for GPA ranges, right? What percentage of students during the time that you were a student at the University of Anchorage were at the 3.80 to 3.99. So 12% of the students were within that range, right? Again, as a comparison, like how are you doing relative to your classmates? But as I mentioned, here we see also like the students start off at 3.30, right? Their first semester, and their GPA just got better and better, right? That's a trend, a positive trend. It conveys to us that the students started to, excel and thrive. They start off, maybe on the lower range, but 3.3 isn't a GPA to scoff at, but they steadily improved, which, coming into law school identifies like, this is, these are the skills that the student is bringing as an incoming student. They understand what they need to do in order to perform at a high level. And then we see like the distribution of, different distribution of letter grades that were earned. Switching over now to this side of the PowerPoint presentation, LSAT scores, right? We see when someone has multiple LSAT score exams, we see what percentage that score falls in. We see when the dates were, did the exam scores improve? For this specific CAS report, we see this person started off at 157. The first test was in June 2017. And as they took additional exams, their scores improved, right? You should be striving to only take the LSAT once, right? No one wants to take it more than once if they don't have to. So you need to prepare for the LSAT as if you're only planning to take it once. Commit your time and energy, and sometimes it may mean LSAT prep courses and whatnot. But you want to give your first, put your best foot forward the first time. So, but sometimes students, it may be the first exam they realize, you know what, I need to go back to this test and do better. And so in this case, this individual took 3 different administrations, one they were absent from, but they improved. So, but we expect to see an improvement, right? If someone's taking the test multiple times, we expect to see them improve. And then the average between all the exams taken. We can also see when I mentioned prior law schools, and also if there's any misconduct, academic probation, academic disqualification, those things need to be disclosed to us. Don't be afraid to disclose something, right? Students, applicants, disadvantage themselves when they withhold information from us, right? Because it's not just for the law school's benefits. When you apply to become an attorney, the state in which you hope to seek, your bar admission will do a background check, a thorough background check, a real thorough background check. And so they want to know who are they impaneling to practice law in their state, right? So when they identify discrepancies in what you inform a law school or what you fail to disclose, that becomes problematic and may actually, will negatively impact your ability to become an attorney within that jurisdiction, right? So tell us what's going on, tell us what happened, provide the details. And, if it's something serious, then you can set up different counseling sessions with admissions reps to talk about, this event happened. How should I talk about this? And we'll have those honest conversations with you. So that's very, kind of very cursory, fast, review of the CAS report. I know there's a lot of numbers here, and, we have presentations in the future about, delving into deeper if those of you are interested in that. Let's see here. All right. Okay, oops, sorry about that. Let's see if we figure this out. All right, it's not changing screens. Okay, personal statement versus diversity statements, right? For all of you, I would contend, and I'm sure many of my colleagues in admissions would say the personal statement is the most important part of the application, right? This is where we learn about you. And so what should you be telling us in the personal statement? Well, again, part of it depends on the law school and their question prompt, right? They ask something specific of you to address a particular, set of, circumstances or narrative that they want you to share with them, or are they saying, you just tell us about yourself, right? But it should, tell you, at the end of the day, it should explain to us why you are pursuing a legal education, right? You don't have to put in a sentence, I want to be an attorney because, but after reading it, we should have a good sense of the why, right? Think about if you were to walk into a room with me, you come into my office, you're all welcome to come visit San Diego. But if you walk into my office and say, this is what you need to know about me, how would you say it? And what are the most important aspects of yourself that you need to express about yourself that have defined you, right? So this isn't, it's not a creative writing, sample. It's, how do you, in your own words, what do we need to know about you? So think about it from that perspective, like how would you express your thoughts in person? And that should be the tenor that you're taking, right? So you're not trying to be something different than you are. Treat a personal statement like it's a representation of your professional work product. I mean, for both Tally and Catherine, expectations are high as attorneys, right? Like pay close attention to detail. This should be something that you write and you rewrite and you rewrite and you're trying to make it perfect, because we want to know not only, about you, but that you care about how you approach something that is, a work product, right? Something that you generate and invest time in. We want to see how you cogently express your ideas in an organized manner, right? Does it take us on a journey? Does it flow? Is everything purposeful in what you're including? So so think about, if this, imagine now extrapolating the energy and effort and attention to detail in this personal statement. What does it say about you as a student, right? But also envision as an attorney, you don't just turn in your first draft to the court, right? It takes time. It takes a desire to do your best. And so the personal statement then in many ways conveys to us, how do you approach something that matters to you, right? So treat it as a professional work product. As I mentioned, be yourself. Don't try to, anticipate what you think we want to hear, right? Because you're trying to get into specific law school. What we want to hear is what's important to you and who you are, right? This is our chance, because we don't have the capacity or ability to interview everybody in person. So, so what do you think are the most important qualities and aspects of yourself or stories that you need to share with us, right? So, but you need to be honest and be genuine and be authentic, because no one, you don't want to pretend you're someone else and then, be at a school that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit for me, right? So it's as much about you deciding where you want to attend and, and picking the school than us identifying you as a prospective candidate, right? This is a two-way street. You're finding the right fit. And so you want to be honest with the school and be authentic so that they know, like, oh, this is the type of person that we know does well here and has something to contribute.
Mike,
yes,
quick
sir.
question. What are your thoughts on people who look at discussion boards to get ideas on writing a personal statement?
That's actually, that's a great question. So, first off, people who are on discussion boards, they don't always know why they got in, right? And there are a lot of opinions out there, but they don't have, or the individuals who are expressing those thoughts aren't reading files. They don't understand what law schools are looking for in candidates. They're just approaching it, perhaps if they're, an admitted student or an attorney or whatnot, from their particular experience and what their specific journey entailed. And when it comes to personal statements, I think that sometimes what happens is someone may say, oh, this is what I did. And then you start to see, similar trends, right? And it's like, is this an original idea and expression of someone's thoughts, or they pull it off of some template, right? Because someone's saying, oh, these are things you need to tell a law school. So I think that, trust the experts, which are admissions representatives who understand their student culture, their campus culture, and what they're looking for in applicants, versus a message board where sometimes you even have people who, may be upset about a decision and saying, oh, and sharing information that isn't useful, right? So I think that there's a lot of noise out there when it comes to message boards, and I don't think it's very productive to follow that as, oh, this is a format I should be pursuing. It should be, you go to the different school admissions representatives, you ask them about their institutions, ask them about what they're looking for their particular, perhaps, in a personal statement, and you learn about them. And that's the most useful way. Now, it may take a lot of work doing that, right? But if this is something that's important to you, then you put in the work. So yeah, I don't think, don't turn to message boards for advice, right? Because you don't know why someone is stating a particular set of, set of tips or advice, and that's what we're here for, right? And we love what we do, right? We're in this profession because we want to help you achieve your dreams of becoming a legal professional, right? So this is what we spend every single moment of our work life doing. So I don't think message boards is a place to go.
Mike, if I can just ask a quick question. So when you say that they should contact the law school admission, and so does that mean that that people like you are actually available for them to call directly or email directly? So they shouldn't be shy in contacting any law school and say, can I talk to someone in the admissions office?
Absolutely not. I mean, send an email. I mean, right now, the easiest thing is to send an email to the different law schools. Have your list of schools that you're interested in, of course, and contact the admissions office and say, I would like to speak with an admissions representative. And we will respond and kind of say, let's jump on a Zoom, right? Or, let's jump on a phone call. For international students, I've done WhatsApp before, right? I spoke to a prospective law student in Nigeria earlier this week. We connected early in the morning. They work with his time zone, like whatever it takes, right? So, because this is information that you're seeking, and we're happy to provide it. So you're never bothering us. We will, set the parameters. Oh, we can do a 30-minute call, or we're having a virtual campus tour. It sounds like based on the questions you're asking, you'd benefit from this experience, right? So there are a lot of different ways for you to learn about our schools. And that's what we're thrilled when students reach out, because not only the privilege that you identified our school as a prospective place you may want to attend, but also this is a monumental decision to attend law school. And so we want to help you through that journey. So never hesitate to reach out.
And sorry, just real quickly though, to follow up on that, do you remember though, who are the students who reached out and did that extra initiative, so that when you see their law school application, you'll remember, oh, I remember Tally was the one who called me and had a very insightful questions?
I'm sure Dean Garcia remembers everybody because he has a phenomenal memory when it comes to people's stories. I do that probably like one or two interactions of like, oh yeah, I remember. But I do tell students, I say, when I meet them, I say, remind me of when I met you, right? What our conversation was, so I could just, reinitiate like that memory cell. But yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. When they attend different events, open house events that schools do, like we do online virtually now, or in person, or at a law fair, or they come up to our table, like some stories just like stand out, and it's hard to forget, right? You're left with an impact. But those multiple interactions, I think, do begin to add up, and then it does inform my understanding of who this person is, if it happens that I'm reading their application. But the reality is that there are multiple people, sometimes dozens of people in an admissions committee, and the student's not going to know who's on the admissions committee when they come to the event, or they're speaking to somebody on the phone. And schools do admissions committees, the review process a little bit differently. So does it help the candidate to show up? I think it helps them because they gain invaluable information about the school and the law school admissions process. And sometimes those stories, are things that just stay with us. But the chances of that being the file they would read, I think it's more useful though if someone's put on the wait list, and then they send letters of continued interest, and they set up a counseling session. Now they're like, oh, this is a student who has demonstrating that they're really committed to this, our institution, and putting the time to learn more about us. And so when we turn into a wait list and we say, who do we think would be a great fit? We're like, I had this really great conversation with, Jorge, and I think I think he's a student that we'd want to see here. And so that does matter in that way. Dean Garcia, you have any opinion about students visiting and kind of like, what does that mean for the stories that stick out of your head and reading files and all that?
I think that you covered the what I wanted to add was that, during this application process, the purpose of meeting with a admissions professional is not for me to remember you. It's for you to get the information that you need so you can put your best application forward. You want to get information from us and not worry about whether I'm going to remember you or not.
Yeah. Thank you. And then, so lastly, and I kept mentioning this because it matters, right? Law schools are specific in their personal statement prompts. Read their prompts carefully. Don't mix them up. If you intend to create a personal statement where for University of Anchorage, law school, I want to attend you because, and then you have one for USD, don't upload the Anchorage one to USD's application, right? Like that happens. That's, again, attention to detail. So yeah, so, and it may be that the question prompt that one school asked doesn't really fit for another law school. So, does that mean a lot of work of maybe potentially composing, multiple personal statements? Yes. Should you be afraid of doing a lot of work? No, you're applying to law school. And I can guarantee you it only gets harder from here. Right. So Catherine, you're laughing because and I have more to share about what look, the LSAT exam, right? We talked about the law school admissions test, the standardized exam in order to, the law schools are a part of the application process. That feels like it's a lot of work. That has nothing on law school. Law school has nothing on the bar exam. And the bar exam and law school and the LSAT have nothing on legal practice. What you're doing is building a foundation for yourself to take on new challenges and thrive and be the advocate that you want to be for people who are turning to you because of your education, right? Because of your expertise, because of how you commit to grow every single day and improve. That's what we're looking for in your application. Like, how does your application tell us that you have these characteristics, these traits, and your story, right? The why you have decided to take on, to pursue this moment in your life. So now, very quickly, diversity statement. I know there's, sometimes there's confusion, right? Well, wait a minute, like how's the diversity statement different than the personal statement? Well, sometimes what you would want to say in a personal statement is the exact same thing you'd want to say in a diversity statement. You don't have to submit a diversity statement, right? This should be, if you feel there is something unique that you want to share with us about, the way you see the world, the way you interact with the world, your lens, right, through which you see the world. Maybe it's, it's your upbringing. Maybe it's, it could be racial, ethnic, diversity. It could be, you have a disability. It could be that growing up in a single parent household and you're responsible for helping to raise your younger sister and brother and the lessons that taught you. It could be that you grew up in a small rural community. It could be you're an international student and how that's informed the way you see the world and your desire to pursue a legal education. So this is what you feel, what you value in yourself about a diverse element of who you are that you wish to share with us, because it will tell us, who we're admitting, but how that approach, the topics and discussions that emerges within the law school context, right, within classrooms. So it's again to focus on an aspect of your background that is unique and that shapes who you are. We want diverse students, right, from different backgrounds and walks of life and experiences, because we know that enriches the learning that takes place. We know that deepens the discussion, the dialogue, the debate that transpires within a law school, classroom, right? It helps you see how people think differently and interpret facts differently. And then, you become more, I think, astute at identifying like, oh, this is how, when we're looking at different legal issues or concepts of the law, like there are different ways to interpret situations, right? How do I adjust my argument based on, if I'm factoring a different viewpoint or vantage point? Problem solving, right? There's not one way to solve a problem. So, having people from different backgrounds and experiences in the classroom makes the learning environment that much stronger. And so we want to see that, and we will only know that if you share it or you think there's something you want to kind of focus on in your application. You do that through a diversity statement. But again, you don't have to. Like sometimes everything you want to tell us is in your personal statement, and it can live there. Diversity is multifarious, right? There's so many aspects and parts to it, right? It's not just one thing or two things. So I mentioned a few earlier, but here's, cultural diversity, religious diversity, age and generational, national origin, age and sex and gender, disability, socioeconomic, family unit diversity. It's what you see in yourself as being diverse. enough that you think it's important enough to express to us, right? And connect in some way to what does this mean about your law school journey and who you will be as a student at our institution. And then there's only so much space on your application, right? So many things that you can give us: addenda, your personal statement, a diversity statement. So you don't want to be repetitive. Your resume, right? You don't want to be repetitive. You don't want to share information in a diversity statement that may be already found in your personal statement. Or you may decide, like, I have a full page of stuff I want to talk about that relates to diversity. It shouldn't be in my personal statement because I can actually bifurcate this into a separate discussion, right? Or an exploration of myself. So yeah, so those are the kind of the high level tips about a diversity statement versus a personal statement. Sometimes students are just confused, like, but this is the story I want to tell in my personal statement. Then do it, right? If it tells us about who you are, then don't feel compelled to have two separate documents. All right, resources that are out there. First off, number one, we have a survey we're going to send you after this or during this session, during the Q&A. Please complete it. What it does is that it allows us to send information. If you put down your email address, you don't have to, by the way. This is completely optional, the survey. But add your email to the discoverlaw.org database. This is an LSAC outreach program for students from diverse backgrounds and experiences, which I said we all have, right? Just, to different degrees. But you can receive resources about upcoming fairs, events that law schools are hosting. It can be, pre-law materials, pre-law school, preparation materials and tips. They have great video content on that website on discoverlaw.org. So by signing up, I completed the survey. First, it allows us to know, like, the reach of this event, how effective it is, but also we provide your email if you opt into that to discoverlaw.org, to LSAC, and now you're part of their communication stream, right? So they will start sending you information relevant to your journey to law school, no matter what grade level you're at, high school, community college, university. They have specific materials that do fit within the category where you find yourself in your current academic status. So I would recommend completing that survey. But this is discoverlaw.org's website if you want to also check out what they have currently posted. Scholarships also, programs over the summer, all managed through LSAC's Discover Law program. The Council on Legal Education Opportunities. So these are just a few things that are out there, right? But it's more to set the tone that there are services out there to help you, in your pursuit of legal education. CLEO provides, like, summer boot camps, right? Like, kind of immersion programs. They have, different programs that allow you to help students with the application process itself. So they have, different, to apply for them and qualify for them. They have their own mechanism for that. But this is an example of just one program that exists. If you type in pre-law services, free, nonprofit, whatever, you're going to get, your Google search will pull up a string of different organizations that are out there to help you. Access Lex Institute, paying for law school, right? Law school is expensive. If you want to know, like, what are the different sources of funding that I can receive as a law student, I want to be educated as someone who may be borrowing money, probably borrowing money to pay for part of my legal education. International students, students located domestically, Access Lex has a wealth of financial education or financial education kind of services and materials for you, counseling sessions you can set up, workshops that you can attend and things like that. I think it's necessary, right? If you're going to law school, how am I going to pay for law school? Dean Garcia has a presentation we're scheduling for in March. So where he's going to cover everything financial aid related. So I'm not going to jump into it today. But Access Like that is a free service that you can start to pursue. Just do some perusing and get a better idea of, like, okay, what are the ways that students pay for law school? And then the Khan Academy for the LSAT prep, right? Khan Academy is free. Now, we don't promote a specific LSAT prep, company, third-party company. I'm not going to tell you, like, oh, do this company, but what I can tell you is that Khan Academy has a direct relationship with LSAC. They receive questions from LSAC from the LSAT exam, right? Past exams. And so now their program is built around that relationship and the fact that they want to provide free LSAT prep to individuals who are looking for, for a starting point. They have diagnostic exams, they have data, they have their repository of questions. It's a good place to start, right? You want to get ready for that exam. You want to invest the time necessary to do well on that exam. And how do you do that? Practice, practice, and more practice. So Yeah, and then from that data, you determine like, okay, this is how I'm doing. This is where maybe I need more time to prepare for this test, or maybe I need to seek out additional resources. But you only know that from the data and from practice scores. So, but the Khan Academy is a great place, is a great resource to start. Thank you. Legal Chat, LSAC, Discover Law, and we mentioned the post-event survey. We'll share that in the chat for you to complete. Please, provide your information. Again, it's useful for us to know like what the effectiveness of this program is, what you found about the presentation, but also connect you with Discover Law and start so they can start sending you communications about programming that they have. So,
Mike, there's
yes.
a couple of questions in the chat that I think it's worth answering in person.
Sure.
The first one, there's a person who asked about the diversity question again. And if you can, I think some people sometimes feel that, they identify diversity as maybe just ethnic diversity. Maybe it's somebody who could be Caucasian and, nothing really spectacular has happened in their life. How can they, can you elaborate on what makes somebody, identifies as having diversity?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that is probably one of the hardest parts about the application process when someone's trying to figure out like what should I be saying about myself, and will it hurt my application if I don't? Like, first off, an application won't be hurt just because it doesn't have a diversity statement, right? So it's not mandatory. So don't feel compelled to like, I need to give them something, right? So they think you have something to offer as being a student who has done well academically, who has shared your story about why you're applying to law school. Like, that's all we need to know right now. But a diversity statement is separate because now you're highlighting something specific that you think you also need to know this, and I have something to share with you about it, right? So it could be that someone, I mean, if we're in San Diego, we have a lot of students applying from California, right? But we also want to see that, regional diversity in our classroom, right? So that may mean students from Florida, or students from New York, or students from Washington, whatever the case may be. And if, so it doesn't mean that someone has to say like, oh, I'm from Florida, that makes me diverse. But that characteristic alone that we see in your application, we note that because we're saying we want different viewpoints represented in the classroom, right? So now someone may say like, oh, because I grew up in the Midwest, like these are my life experiences, and they've now informed the way I see the world and the type of student I will be, and let me express that to you, right? This is what makes me diverse, or what I appreciate about my experiences. So let me convey that to you in a separate statement. So it doesn't have to be where someone is ethnically diverse or racially diverse, or it's just like, what do you feel is unique about yourself that right? It's just like, it's always present, and that affects who you are, and that that is now part of this law school journey, and how you will interact with the people around you, the students around you, right? Your classmates, discussion, and you feel compelled enough, like, I need to also disclose this or elaborate on this aspect even further. So it doesn't have to be, I think that, for students who aren't diverse, they shouldn't say like, oh, me not being diverse makes me diverse. Like, that's a no-no, right? It should really be like something that's meaningful to you. And you need to, now unfold this story for us and connect the whys, right? Like, why is it this, a seminal aspect of who you are? And I think that, I mean, I've read students who maybe they worked in tech for 20 years, and now they are moving over to, to pursue a legal education. They say, this is what makes me diverse, my professional experience and what I've done, and I bring this now to the classroom, right? Or someone who, I'm trying to think of other kind of different ways of expressing diversity.
I can share one.
Yeah.
She's actually in our I think she's at 2L now. We had an application from a student who wrote her personal statement on, her major was poli-sci, and she took a number of courses that sparked an interest in social justice, right? So she talks about why this is sort of pushing her to go to law school. Then her diversity statement is about the fact that she came from a small town in West Virginia in the middle of the mountains, and nobody ever leaves that place. Everything is just in that small town, and how her experience growing up is not the same as somebody who might have lived in San Francisco or in New York or in major cities. And so she elaborates on her experience, and so that's experiential diversity. She's very different, and she brings an element into the classroom discussion that nobody else can really have or provide.
Yeah, I've spoken to applicants, when we travel, a year ago when we were traveling, visiting different institutions, and you meet students from, smaller schools, and they say, I grew up in this small town, kind of very similar to saying, and like the services that are available to my community were limited. And because of that, I got involved in these ways, right? So because of what they observed, that they lived through, they actually did something about it, right? So that's how they're weaving in communicating to me that it's not just my background, the fact that it exists that makes me diverse, it's how I've lived my life as a result of it, right? And now what you can expect from me as a student because of what I'm bringing to the table from this, from my background and how it's affected me, right? Because if it's really you, then it's manifesting in different ways throughout the entirety of your life, right? And that's what we want to know.
One more question. This is on personal statement. How long should a personal statement be? And how early should somebody begin to work on writing their personal statement? Or what should that timing be?
Yeah, I mean, so, some law schools will specify a length requirement. It's no more than 3 pages. I don't think I've ever seen any law school have something longer than 3 pages. We want to read, we read the applications thoroughly. If it's longer than whatever the specified page limit is, if the school, provides it, we're not going to read past those pages, right? Like, we want you to follow instructions. So I would say anywhere between 2 to 3 pages, but whatever's sufficient, within that maximum to tell us about yourself. This is a writing sample. How well can you organize your thoughts and communicate ideas within the specific confines, right? So single space, don't play games with the margins and, size 9 font, right? Like, that's already, you're already trying to break the rules here, trying to, it's perceivable. It's immediately we can tell, like, oh, well, this is not, that's not the way you turn in a paper to a professor. So why are you, doing the, kind of submitting that in an application process? So again, some schools will actually specify no more than this page, but for USD, we recommend 2 to 3 pages at the most. Double space, no, 12 font, whatever, but nothing, don't try to shrink things and, play games. Like, just be effective at how you express yourself in your personal statement.
Sure. One more question that just got posted is, do you have any advice on gaining experience to include on the application during the pandemic? And that's, if you can answer that question, we can bottle it and sell it.
I mean, you know what? I think that, of course you have to be creative. You make phone calls and call up nonprofits and ask them what type of, who's looking for help, right? And say, this is my situation. Like, are you providing any ways for students to volunteer? It's hard, right? Because, if the economy's slowing down or people are working from home, you're not in an office environment, like you don't have someone to supervise your work, right? So the opportunities are limited. I would say use this time wisely then and do things that that will strengthen you as a student, right? Read a lot, learn a new language, create something new, right? If there's something going on in your community, you see people in need, then like, okay, how do I become a part of this process safely, right? Like, you need to take care of yourself, but how do I become a problem solver and create something new, right? And maybe it's using the technology you have around you, using Zoom, like, oh, let's do LSAT study sessions with people I have on this call, right? Or whatever it is, but it shows initiative, right? It shows that you're not complacent. It communicates to us that you make the most out of your time and you're not being idle. And the reason why that's important is that you will not find time to be idle in law school, right? We demand the best of you and we push you because we're trying to shape you to get ready for those moments where someone's coming to you in desperate hours of need, right? And if you're just, kind of just hanging out, well, is that the best use of your time, right? Is that the type of law student you're going to be? Are you really going to be, not that you can't be, that says you're not going to be a student who's aspiring to do their best, but, at least I think for USC, I could speak to, for our school, we want to see students that are purposeful, right? That they show intent with how they invest themselves, because that tells us what type of student they will be, right, at our institution. And I'm sure law schools are, have different, that's when you talk to us, we use different ways to communicate what we're looking for, because we know our cultures and we know what that means as a byproduct for the environment, that learning environment that we have to offer. And so you speak to different admissions reps because you will hear them describe their schools in a different way. You say, oh, that's me, or I have that to offer, or that sounds fantastic, I resonate with that, right? So yeah, I think that during the pandemic, like getting experience may be hard, but don't be afraid to call up places and ask them if they're, if they're hiring or accepting volunteer work, or if you can help, do research for them or whatever. But also sometimes it may mean creating something new for yourself, right? That that's helping people around you. So that's what I would do, right? I'd be like, the pandemic's going on, like I'm interested in the law. Where is the law not going far enough, right? Is there a way for us to, create a clinic, right? Where people connect, maybe people that don't have access to the internet. Okay, how do we solve that problem? Like, do we develop an app and maybe people connect on the phone and jump on for, problem solve? I think that's what we want, yeah.
And it can be as simple as just joining your school's pre-law group.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of those organizations are running virtually, so don't overthink this. And one other piece I would add is that don't stress over the resume piece at the risk of your grades. Okay, so you should never try and overcommit on internships or volunteer work and then lose sight that one of the most important pieces in the application is going to be your grades. So only do that if you have time to spare.
Yeah, no, and you should only be doing things when you can do them well, right? I think that, you don't spread yourself too thin, again, compromising your grades, but you should be spending your time on things that you really want to participate in and be involved in and contribute to, right? Because then you have more to share about it, right? Or maybe, someone writes a great letter of recommendation because you actually did a fantastic job because you weren't spreading yourself too thin. So I think that's something, we're looking at how how your time balancing skills, time management skills. And if you have 10 extracurriculars, but you have a C+ average, we're wondering like, well, that's bad judgment, potentially, right? So
Tally and Catherine, there's like 5 minutes left. I don't know if you have other things or you want to keep answering questions.
If you're
Keep answering. Yeah.
Okay, so there's one more question that got posted, and she's asking about whether having a minor in college matters. She's aware that what type of major doesn't really impact, but does having a minor help at all?
I mean, you should pursue courses that interest you, and doing well in those courses, regardless what they are, whether it be double majoring or have a single major or a minor. I think that if there's a minor and maybe it's law related, that can benefit an applicant, because then we know like, oh, this person is taking classes that directly correlate with legal education. But most undergraduate classes do, right? Whenever there's research and writing, intensive courses, then you're bringing those skills, or you've honed those skills in an undergraduate institution. You do not have to have, there's no specific degree you have to have in order to apply to law school. You could be a dance major, right? You could be a theater major, like, I don't care. But what I do want to know is that, if you in a major where there isn't a lot of, writing and research intensive courses, that you still fit those courses in, because I need to evaluate, what, your performance in those courses. So it does not matter what major you're applying to law school with, whether it be STEM majors or English majors. I mean, yes, there are certain majors that you tend to, where you see a lot of students thinking about law, right? Because of just the nature of the subjects, political science, sociology, psychology, in those majors. But we don't have an expectation of specific major. We just want to see you do well in your coursework and you establish, developing the skills necessary for you to thrive in a law school capacity or environment. And having a minor, so long as if it's what interests you, right? Enjoy this time as an undergraduate, right? Take those classes. But don't spread yourself too thin because you think like, I need to add these courses, or I need to stand out a different way.
2 questions, 3 minutes. Does working full-time at a law firm suffice as experience? Do you recommend somebody looking for more volunteer opportunities?
So working in a law firm, I think it's great, because then you have a firsthand view of what it means to be, a practicing attorney, or at least you're observing other attorneys and how long their hours, their days are, and what those days look like. But it depends on the nature of the work too, the substance, right? What is the quality of work that you're doing? Like if you're just sitting and making copies, not that that's not an important job, but if you're going to use that as like an experience to say like, oh, this is why I'm applying to law school. I think that, the type of work that you're doing matters, because then at least exposes you to that. And again, you start to, cultivate specific skills that you will be, demonstrating and fine tuning in law school. So I think it's good, because also if you've seen a law firm environment and you still want to be an attorney, that's even better, right? So it's a challenging profession, but I'll tell you what, I mean, there are very few professions that are as rewarding as practicing law, and the responsibility that you have as an attorney as well and advising clients. You have the ability to change someone's trajectory of their life through your education. And, you know, that we take that very seriously. And so, you know, I think that not many jobs, you know, have that type of not only pressure, but I think that reliance on you. And so, you know, for the attorneys that you hear on the panel, like that is why we love what we do, right? Because we help people and we do it through the law. And, you know, the impact is profound. And so, yeah, so if you expose yourself to that working in a law firm environment, that's great. I don't know, we're only at 3 minutes or so. Attorneys like to talk, so I'm sorry. So what's the next question?
A shorter answer.
Yeah.
Actually, Dean Garcia and Mike, if you are both available to extend 10 more minutes, we'd appreciate that to answer the rest of the questions. Would
I'm
that be
good.
okay?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm just
sure.
here. I'm just here at home. I'm not doing anything. So
Okay. All right. So
Like all of us.
let me move on to the next one, which is there a drawback in taking the LSAT multiple times?
I mean, you know, you should be improving in your scores, and you should be. I mean, if you've taken the LSAT already and you're thinking like, I need to take it again, that's where the practice scores come in, right? Because they're informing you your decision as like, should I be taking this test now a month from now or 3 months from now, right? I think that, you know, if there's a starting point or if you have a starting point, so these practice exams, and you see improvement, then, you know, and you think like, I think I can get whatever score, right? If I have more time, then maybe, but I think that you should be planning to take it once, put all the time you need and organize your life necessary to take it once, right? Because no one wants to take it more than once. If you take it multiple times, we want to see improvement, right? So that means you need to set yourself up to improve your score. And, you know, there are a lot of different resources out there. Everybody learns differently. So, you know, you kind of have to evaluate the different programs for yourself and determine which ones are a good fit for you. But the drawback is that if we see, you know, a lot of LSAT exams and there's inconsistencies or, you know, drop in score, that, you know, that can impact your file. But some schools will average your LSAT scores. Some schools will just take your high, right? But all the scores are informative, right? So yes, and we can always have, you can always, if you have a specific question, LSAT question, you can always set up a counseling session where I'm more than happy to have one-on-one.
Okay. One other question is, somebody is completing, Jezebel is completing her paralegal certificate. Is it advantageous to include that in her academic resume?
Yes, absolutely. And for some schools, they may require the transcripts associated with your paralegal certificate or courses, right? So schools differ as to what grades they want to see. For USD, we want to see all courses associated with your education, postgraduate education including. Some schools will just say, just give us your undergraduate degree courses, your any, community college courses you took, they're specifically related to your undergraduate degree. But for USD, we want to see everything. So including postgraduate education.
I think that's all that's on the chat, but I don't know if there's any questions that people would just like to personally ask. And I'll let Tally handle from here.
There's another question in the chat in the early session. It's asking how much in average does application process cost, and can they get a waiver, and how do they get waivers?
So there are waivers for different parts of the application. You have to apply for the waiver, right? So I'm sure we can pull up a web page here and actually send it to you, the link, if you give me a moment. First, let me send you the LSAT dates, because there are waivers for the LSAT exam, waivers for the CAS report, for the applications to the law school. Now, some law schools charge to submit an application to their schools, some schools don't. We do not charge, it's free to apply to USD law. However, the CAS report is mandatory. So every student will have to send a CAS report to institution. So I just dropped in, first I sent my email, then I sent for those of you interested in doing a one-on-one or admissions counseling session or whatnot, then I dropped it in the chat, the LSAT exam dates, and there's an option there to choose in different countries and regions as well for the international students. So you can see where the test may be administered and when, and the country where you're at. And then let me do a quick search if you don't mind. So for LSAC, and I'm going to pull up the waiver information.
Okay, and while he's doing that, if you can let us know what future topics about law school admissions you'd like us to discuss more in depth, like personal statements or diversity essays. What we'll do is we'll try to have a legal chat for about an hour about those specific information for you. So if you can just put that in the chat, we will take notes. Thank you.
And so just, so it looks like we don't have any more questions, but I did want to say that we do have, as I mentioned before, Dean Garcia will be presenting a financial aid, topic in March. I think is when we're looking at. And so I think it's, law school can be expensive, but you can mitigate the cost of law school by, of course, continue to do well at the undergraduate level, performing well on the LSAT exam, merit-based scholarship awards, and he will get onto that. But I think that's why, getting a grasp of just all the different sources that are available to you, you can afford a legal education, right? It's just knowing like what these sources look like, and and deciding for yourself, like, okay, how do what's my debt tolerance? But I mentioned Access Flex too, so check out that site for additional materials that they provide.
And Mike, I think before we end, there was actually one other question. I don't know if we answered it or not yet, but someone was asking, when should college students start looking at law schools?
Yeah, I mean, most students will start looking at the LSAT exam probably like for their senior year. So, and even in their junior year, start studying for it. So taking the LSAT, in their senior year, and then some students are taking gap years and things like that. So someone who's in college right now, there's no sense in looking at LSAT questions and even starting to put together your application, because it's really early when you're a sophomore, right? However, I do think it's useful to talk to law schools, learn what the application process looks like when you're a freshman and when you're a sophomore, so you have that, that information kind of like informing your decisions, right? But I mean, your plate is full as an undergraduate, and again, you're expected to do well in your coursework. And if you start adding LSAT prep as a sophomore, like that's really early, right? So maybe your junior year, you can start looking at that, your personal statement. I know one of the questions earlier was like, when should I start working on your personal statement? I mean, that thing should be written multiple times. And, so I probably wrote my personal statement like 9 times. So, I don't know how long it took me. It took me probably like 2 months before I was like happy with it. But that's the time you have, right? And, you don't want to rush it. And for my, for like your personal statement, like you want to give it to 3 different people: someone who knows you well, someone who doesn't know you that well, and someone who has supervised your work product, right? Amongst all of them, they will be able to tell you like, oh, this is what I think you're telling me. This, your good friend, or someone will say like, is that really true? Is that really you, right? They'll call you out when they think you're embellishing on things. And then your supervisor will be able to point out things like, I think these are other strengths that maybe you should mention, or I think that this is exactly what I've seen in you, right? So different perspectives. It isn't a draft that you're giving to anybody. This is my final piece. Can you please look at this, right? So that takes time. So everybody, writes different paces and can expresses their ideas differently, or feel happy or unhappy about what they're putting together, and throw it out and start with something brand new. It just depends on the person. So yeah, that's going back to that former question. But as far as getting ready, like that's what Discover Law is for, right? Well, they'll send you information about events and materials and what law school looks like, and testimonials, and then you start looking at the LSAT your junior year, and then you can apply. Students will start applying to law school if they're thinking about attending in their senior year. The gap years, we have students who've taken 10, 15, 20 years off of have been working and then apply to law school. So it's when you're ready, right, to go to law school. That's when you go, and it's the work you put in ahead of time to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward when you do apply.
And for law school applications, are there interviews as well, interviews that are conducted, and how do you prepare for law school interviews?
So I do know some law schools have law school interviews. I think that they may have really large admissions departments in order to accommodate the thousands of people that may be applying. Some schools may be very selective in who they do their interviews for. I think that most law schools don't have the capacity to do interviews because it's really time consuming. And but I think I can't speak to what there's about 180 ABA accredited law schools plus. USD does not offer interviews. We learn, the application, is sufficient enough for us to. We don't know everything about you in the application, right? It's hard, right? This is not, this is an all-encompassing, kind of exploration of your life in the application, but it's what we need to know in order to make an informed decision for admission. And I would say for if someone's placed on the wait list, however, that's when someone sets up a meeting and they're asking questions about the wait list. Like it's very useful then, because we're learning additional pieces about you, information about you that maybe the application didn't convey, and that goes into, we store or document that in different ways, and when we go to the wait list, we're able to say like, oh well, Jorge came to this event and he set up a counseling session and he sent a letter of continued interest, and then we had a follow-up conversation, right? Doesn't mean that you email us every week. It just means we still need to refiles. So it just means that when we see that there's interest, it makes clear to us that we're a school that you're really interested in.
I only know, I mean, I've been around for a while, and I only know of 2 or 3 law schools that do interviews. It's Northwestern, Vanderbilt, I think NYU. Most of them don't. There's just the bandwidth is not wide enough.
Any other questions?
Well,
All
thank
right.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chavez and Dean Garcia. Thank you guys for joining us and sharing that helpful information. Everyone really enjoyed it, and we really appreciate all of you guys for joining us this Saturday morning.
Yes, and the recording for this legal chat and all other legal chat topics are available in our link in bio on Instagram and our website. So you can always refer to those. We provided you with a lot of information. So it's very helpful to watch and rewatch them, because you'll forget. And depending on where you are in your legal journey, information changed. But the information you should get from here to make sure you have is the emails of Mike Chavez and Dean Garcia, because they're very generous with their time and they're willing to talk to you. So that that's your first contact right now. If you feel you don't know who to contact at any admissions office, they provided you with their email. So take advantage.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you and have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.